Welcome to this video on tax compliance as the unavoidable price of permanent residency and eventual citizenship. First, we will set the stage for why annual filing matters far beyond finances. Then, we will walk through the mandatory paper trail, the dangers of under-the-table work, and how to properly report cash income. Finally, we will cover practical steps, timelines, and key takeaways, along with a brief disclaimer. Stay with me through the end for a concise summary and actionable next steps. Here is our agenda. First, we will clarify what is at stake legally and morally. Next, we will cover the mandatory paper trail and why you should file annually, even if your income is low. Then, we will examine the risks of working under the table and not reporting that income. After that, we will learn how to correctly report cash income. Moving on, we will outline a year-by-year compliance timeline. We will also identify the key documents you should retain. Along the way, we will test your knowledge with brief quizzes. Finally, we will summarize and give you concrete next steps. To begin, tax compliance is more than paying money to the government. It is a legal and moral assessment that signals respect for the rule of law and fulfills the standard of good moral character, which is essential for naturalization. Additionally, immigration officials evaluate consistency, honesty, and adherence to law, and one of the first lenses they use is your tax history. Therefore, even when your income is low, consistent tax filing provides critical evidence of reliability and integrity. Now let us examine the mandatory paper trail. First, make a continuous record by filing every single year you have work authorization, regardless of your income level. Even if you are below the legal filing threshold, a filed return prevents gaps that can stall or derail future applications, including naturalization. Next, retain copies of every return, all W-2s and 1099s, receipts, and bank statements indefinitely. These documents prove both income and compliance. Moreover, paying a modest preparation fee today can prevent costly delays or denials later. Finally, keep your identifying details, such as address and SSN or ITIN, consistent year to year to make your history easy to verify. This flowchart depicts the journey from obtaining work authorization to achieving naturalization. First, you have work authorization. Next, you reach the annual tax filing decision. If your income is below the threshold, you still file to maintain a consistent record. If your income is above the threshold, you file a complete return and pay any taxes owed. In both scenarios, you then retain records, which become evidence of good moral character. Meanwhile, the diagram also shows a risk pathway. Under-the-table work leads to unreported income, which can be viewed as willful tax evasion, thereby jeopardizing good moral character and causing application delays or denials. In parallel, the diagram highlights the correct handling of cash income. Report it on Schedule C, calculate and pay any self-employment tax if applicable, and thereby demonstrate compliance. In contrast to the compliant path, under-the-table employment without reporting income creates severe risks. On the left, the compliant path includes reporting all income, filing every year regardless of thresholds, retaining organized documentation, using Schedule C for cash or self-employment, and demonstrating good moral character. On the right, the cash-only path involves unreported income, documentation gaps, and a perception of evasion, which can directly undermine applications for permanent residency benefits or naturalization. Therefore, choosing the compliant path is both safer and strategically smarter for long-term stability. Next, let us address the dangers of under-the-table work. Unreported cash income can be interpreted as willful tax evasion, a serious threat to good moral character. Furthermore, gaps in filing history undermine credibility and make your application vulnerable to scrutiny. Importantly, the burden of proof rests with you to explain any missing returns or unreported income. However, late corrections can help. If you have past issues, file the missing or amended returns and pay any taxes due. Therefore, honesty combined with proactive corrective action is the best way to protect your long-term goals. Moving forward, here is how to report cash income correctly. First, track all cash with detailed logs, invoices, bank deposits, and receipts. Next, report that income on Schedule C or CEZ if eligible, and maintain documentation for any business expenses you deduct. Then, calculate and pay self-employment tax using Schedule SE. If your tax liability is significant, make quarterly estimated payments. In addition, be consistent with your contact information and identifying numbers year to year. Retain copies and proof of payment indefinitely. Finally, if you missed prior years, file retroactively and consider a payment plan with the tax authority to demonstrate good faith compliance. Here is a quick table of common situations and what to file. If your income is below the threshold, still file to maintain your paper trail. If you are a W-2 employee, report wages as issued and reconcile withholding. If you are a gig worker or independent contractor receiving 1099s, report all earnings, deduct legitimate expenses, and pay self-employment tax. For cash tips or jobs, treat the income as self-employment, report it on Schedule C, and include Schedule SE if applicable. If you missed prior years, file those returns late, or submit amended returns, and pay what is owed. In every case, keep the returns, source documents, and proof of payments indefinitely. This timeline illustrates 5 consecutive years of disciplined compliance. In year 1, you obtain work authorization, file a return even if income is below the threshold, and start retaining records. In year 2, you continue annual filing, add Schedule C if you have cash or self-employment income, and reconcile figures to bank statements. In year 3, you make quarterly estimated payments if required, and thoroughly organize receipts and logs to withstand potential audits. In year 4, you review for consistency across addresses and identifying numbers, and you correct any gaps by filing late or amended returns. In year 5, you assemble your naturalization evidence package, including IRS transcripts, full copies of returns, W-2s and 1099s, and key receipts, while ensuring that any tax balances are paid or covered by a payment plan. Quiz time. The question is, if your income is below the federal filing threshold, but you hold work authorization, what should you do? Option A. Do not file. It is unnecessary. Option B. File a return anyway to maintain your continuous paper trail. Option C. Only file if you received a W-2. Option D. Wait until naturalization to catch up on filings. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is to file a return anyway to maintain your continuous paper trail. Filing annually prevents gaps in your record, which immigration officials consider when assessing good moral character and eligibility for naturalization. Second quiz. The question is, how should cash income from informal work be reported to demonstrate compliance? Option A. Do not report cash. It is not traceable. Option B. Report on Schedule C and pay any self-employment tax due with Schedule SE. Option C. Only report if your employer gives you a 1099. Option D. Convert cash to money orders and skip reporting. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is to report on Schedule C and pay any self-employment tax due using Schedule SE. All income is legally required to be reported, and this is the proper mechanism for cash or self-employment earnings. Before we conclude, here is a brief disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal or tax advice. Laws and requirements change, and your facts matter greatly. Therefore, consult a qualified tax professional or immigration attorney to receive guidance tailored to your situation. As a quick reference, always file annually, even if your income falls below the threshold. Doing so avoids gaps in your history. Additionally, request IRS transcripts as a backup. Next, report all income, including W-2 wages, 1099 earnings, and cash, using Schedule C and Schedule SE when applicable. Finally, keep records indefinitely. Returns, receipts, logs, bank statements, and proof of payments, so that you can produce evidence quickly when needed. Here are the key takeaways. Annual filing is essential, even with low income. Unreported cash can be seen as willful evasion and can harm good moral character. For cash or self-employment income, use Schedule C and Schedule SE. Retain complete records permanently. Lastly, proactive compliance is almost always less expensive and less risky than attempting to fix issues later. To wrap up, file every year to build an unbroken record. Report all income, including cash, using the proper schedules. Organize and retain documents indefinitely. If you have past mistakes, correct them with late or amended returns, and pay what you owe. For complex scenarios, consult qualified professionals. With deliberate, consistent compliance, you transform a vulnerability into one of your strongest assets during naturalization. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like the video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more content. Tell us in the comments what your biggest tax compliance questions are so we can cover them in future episodes.